Hi, this is my review of Schweig's themed dungeon generator. This generator is a very handy, although somewhat generic tool to create your own adventure sites for almost any game, any genre. It's also quite useful to have solo adventures. It turns out that November is a solo gaming appreciation month. I didn't know that. Maybe it's because November is the 11th month, 1-1 double solo. I don't know. If you have more information about that, let me know in the comments because I'm curious as to why this is like a month that celebrates solo gaming. So this generator is currently on sale. So I think it was like $1.50 or less. So if after this review you like it, you should take advantage of that sale. Let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is pretty good. Everything is well organized and written, although it feels somewhat bare bones, but I think it's appropriate for this generic generator. You only have like a couple of images of generic looking dice, but the quality is top notch. Now, let's talk about the contents. First, you have a few paragraphs that serve as introduction to this generator. The author gives his thoughts and ideas on how to create a dungeon or adventure site. And then you immediately go into the meat of the generator. You have information on how to seed the generator. That is, taking different elements, thematic elements, and how to translate those elements mechanically for an adventure. And so you're going to have all the information and way to organize that information to create wizard towers, forbidden crypts, haunted mansions, etc. So you have all the information concerning the theme, corridors and chambers, how to generate them, what types of corridors and chambers, the placement of traps, special dungeon trappings and features, the types of encounters that you're going to have, and the treasure. The section on encounters is pretty good because they give you a sort of like an escalation system. That is, the deeper you delve into the dungeon, the more encounters and more dangerous encounters that you're going to have until eventually you hit a dungeon boss. So that's quite nice if you want to play a solo adventure, a solitary adventure. You could be generating all these rooms and corridors and having different encounters, and as you go deeper and deeper into the dungeon, you will have a chance to face off against the dungeon villain or boss, and you could consider that adventure to be a success or that you won this particular dungeon. And then you have information on how to use the generator, and it's pretty cool because at the end you have a fillable dungeon sheet so that you can type in all sorts of information for any type of dungeon that you like. And this is also particularly useful and clear because at the end you'll have a couple of sample dungeons. You have the typical goblin lair and you have the ruined wizard's labyrinth. Now, the cool thing about this is that these sample dungeons are basically two solitaire adventures. If you wanted to, you could grab your Labyrinth Lord or 13th Age, Dungeons and Dragons, any type of game, and you could have a solitaire adventure by generating different rooms and corridors and chambers, because it's all right here. You just need to roll your polyhedral dice and you will have a solo adventure. Now let's talk about what I think overall of this dungeon generator. I think this is going to be more useful for two types of players. First, those that are not very experienced in generating dungeons, or maybe they have just started to play role-playing games, and this is a great introduction to creating your own adventure sites. This is also quite useful for solitaire role players, because as I was telling you, you have a complete system on how to generate all those areas and those encounters, treasure traps, etc. so that you can feel challenged as you take on tougher and tougher enemies as you go into the dungeon. I think this won't be like a must-have, or some would consider it a waste of time. That is, if you are too experienced in generating dungeons, if you already have many dungeon generators, or you have been playing role-playing games for quite a while, you could consider that, oh, I've seen more complex or deeper things, systems with a lot more factors and more things that you can add concerning dungeon trappings and different ways to handle encounters. But I still, for example, I still like that this has this fillable sheet. It's going to be quite useful for me to generate any sort of dungeon, both when I run a game or when I'm playing solo. So the bottom line is that if you have just started to play role-playing games, or if you don't own dungeon generators, I would recommend that you get this. And if you're an experienced player, you won't be missing out on many things if you do not get it, but it's still a handy tool. And there are a couple of, well, there are a bit negative things, but it's mostly that it lacks those particular instructions to really bring out the potential of this dungeon generator. And that is, it handles everything like a fantasy dungeon. You have almost all the instruction information to create a fantasy dungeon, but this dungeon generator serves for any genre, for any type of story that you want to tell. If you want to play a science fiction game, this is perfect for that. If you want to play horror games or steampunk games, etc. And it's not just for dungeons. If you wanted to, you could create, for example, an enchanted or cursed forest. You would just have to replace things like corridors and chambers with things like roads and clearings, or forest caves or giant tree or whatever that you like. So this generator serves for any type of role-playing game out there, but they do not give you tips on how to use them, to use the elements here for those games. And that's also funny because an experienced role player will be able to use this dungeon generator for those role-playing games. So if you look at it that way, that's a good thing to consider. If you already have other dungeon generators, but you want something that is already organized to be filled and with a few tips, you could consider like a handy or flexible tool, as I was telling you. It would have been nice if they also added blank spaces in the dungeon generator sheet, because it's already like pre-written corridors and chambers. And if they were blank spaces, you could, as I was telling you, place anything that you like to make more sense of the dungeon adventure site, like roads, clearings, rivers, lakes, etc. So all in all, beginners, you should definitely get this one. Solo gamers, get this one. Those that are quite experienced in role-playing games, it's up to you based on the information that I have given you. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.